We may finally understand what the New York Knicks master plan is, at least for this trade deadline. Because according to a few NBA insiders, they note that the New York Knicks would prefer to trade Quentin Grimes over to the West Coast. If that's the case, then it really narrows down the teams that the Knicks could trade with. And if you look around the league and you look at players that fit what the New York Knicks want to do right now and in the future, there's one player that fits that better than all the rest. Malcolm Brogdon. We're going to break down this report and so much more today. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button now and make sure you have notifications turned on so you don't miss a second of the new content. And now, let's get started. Quentin Grimes could be traded out west by the New York Knicks. Now, we've known for the last week that the Knicks have been interested in trying to trade Quentin Grimes to another team. They've been fielding offers and seeing where they could trade him and where they can get a quality player back that they can add to this roster to help this team contend in the Eastern Conference this season. And there's a lot of names you can look at, but at least according to one NBA insider, he notes the following about the New York Knicks and where they'd like to trade Grimes. Per Brett Siegel, an NBA insider, he notes that the Knicks would prefer to trade Quentin Grimes to a Western Conference team. He continues by stating, New York has been actively making calls and gauging the market for trade packages that consist of Grimes, veteran Evan Fournier's expiring contract, and draft picks. NBA insider with SNY, Ian Bagley, also noted that I'm told that there are a few teams in particular that have expressed some interest. It is the Hawks, the Jazz, the Rockets, and the Memphis Grizzlies. Those are among the teams that have expressed some interest in Grimes. Now, we're going to get into those teams and if they make sense for Grimes, but before we do, there was a name that I mentioned at the top of the show that I mentioned that you see in the thumbnail there as well too, about the New York Knicks potentially making a trade for this potential player because I believe this is their master plan, at least going into the trade season. And here's why. You didn't see the Portland Trail Blazers mentioned there. However, if you look at another couple of NBA insiders, they actually note that the New York Knicks have recently talked about adding Malcolm Brogdon to this New York Knicks roster. Shout out to Mark Stein, an NBA insider, who mentions the following. Stein reported that Malcolm Brogdon has been mentioned as a potential Knicks target in their well-chronicled search for a guard to fortify their bench. I want to mention that Stein wrote about this recently in his article of this week. So this isn't an article that came out a week ago or 2 weeks ago. This is recent. I want to remind everybody that Brogdon won the Sixth Man of the Year last season over Emmanuel Quickley, and he's going to make $22.5 million next season. He's another player the Knicks could include in a trade for a star if and when the opportunity presents itself. One NBA insider's good. You know what's better than that? Two NBA insiders. Because besides Mark Stein, NBA insider Brett Siegel also mentioned the following about the New York Knicks and their interest in Malcolm Brogdon. According to him, he mentions, as for which teams are currently interested in adding Brogdon to their rosters, Brett Siegel of Clutch Points reports that the 76ers, the Magic, the Knicks, and the Lakers have all talked with the Blazers recently regarding Brogdon. He continues by stating, Malcolm Brogdon has been made available in trade talks by the Portland Trail Blazers in recent weeks. The Philadelphia 76ers, the Magic, the Knicks, the Lakers, they've all had talks with the Blazers recently regarding Brogdon. It continues to look unlikely that Portland will make Jeremy Grant readily available in trade conversations. I want to point out here that NBA insider Brett Siegel did mention that these conversations between the Blazers and the Knicks have all happened recently. And if that's the case and you're reading between the lines here, and you obviously know that the Knicks want to trade Grimes to a Western Conference team, if you're looking at the players that make sense for the Knicks this season, today, that helps them right now, if you add Brogdon, even though I don't like him, even though I wouldn't like him on this Knicks team, I can understand why the Knicks would want to add him and the fit. Because if you think about it like this, the Knicks traded away Emmanuel Quickley, runner-up for Sixth Man of the Year last season. And if they trade for Malcolm Brogdon, who won Sixth Man of the Year last season, it might make sense in that regard. And if you think you can get his value up on the New York Knicks, even higher than it is right now with the Blazers, and you could potentially flip him and his contract with a couple of other picks and players down the road for that star or superstar that you want, then I think it makes sense for the New York Knicks to potentially make this deal. Now, I did mention I don't like this move for the Knicks because, again, I feel like there's other players on the board that can help the Knicks right now and in the future and are not injury prone. And in my opinion, you just have to look at the Washington Wizards. I might sound like a broken record at this point, but honestly, I sound like this because nobody's really mentioning the fact that Tyus Jones and Daniel Gafford are right there. They're cheaper options. You might be able to get them for a cheaper cost than Malcolm Brogdon or any of these other players that are still available that the New York Knicks could potentially trade for. I like that more than I like Brogdon. But you could sell me on Brogdon with the same facts I just told you. Former Sixth Man of the Year last year. We need bench help. He makes the money that the New York Knicks like this season. He's under contract next season as well too. He still helps the Knicks' dreams potentially of trading for that superstar that they want this offseason without compromising giving up a lot of assets right now to acquire Malcolm Brogdon. You could potentially make the argument that the Blazers may want a young asset, that's Quentin Grimes, some draft compensation. The Knicks have a lot of protected picks that they can offer, and salary filler. That's Evan Fournier right there, that if the Blazers traded for him, they can waive him at the end of the season, off the books, and then they can decide what they want to do to that roster and not have to worry about the cap hold that Evan Fournier would have to command. But if you're looking at trade packages and the Knicks really and truly wanting to move on from Quentin Grimes and send them West Coast, then the Malcolm Brogdon trade might make more sense than any other West Coast teams that might be interested in Quentin Grimes. Let's go ahead and take a look at those teams and break them down because Ian Bagley gave us that list. And in my opinion, if you're looking just at those West Coast teams, I don't think any of them make more sense than the Portland Trail Blazers at this point in time. Let's take a look at them. Okay, the Hawks are on this list, but they're on the East Coast. So we're going to go ahead and avoid them. The rest of the teams on this list, all are on the West Coast. Let's start with the least likely, the Memphis Grizzlies. It doesn't make any sense at all for the Knicks and the Grizzlies to do business. The only player at the top of my head that I can see the Knicks wanting to go after and potentially could be made available is Xavier Tillman. And even if that's the case, Steven Adams is out for the entire season. They are thin at the center position. And even though Ja Morant is out, and you could potentially say that this Grizzlies team may not want to win, they might be tanking, whatever the case may be, it doesn't really matter to me. Because at the end of the day, this Grizzlies team is not going to want to give up Xavier Tillman at this point in time because they are thin at that position. And if they do that, they really won't have a lot more depth to put out there and run out there, especially if another injury happens to them. So I don't think they're going to do that deal. Honestly, it doesn't make sense for the Knicks or the Memphis Grizzlies to do this deal, so I think both parties wouldn't even entertain a deal at this point in time. Moving on to the next team on this list, the Rockets. Now, the Rockets make more sense for Grimes just because of the Cougar connection over there because he played college for them, so obviously that makes a little bit of sense. But other than that, it doesn't make sense for the Knicks or the Houston Rockets at this point in time to do any business. A name that's been floated out there, I believe, has been Jalen Green because he's having a really down year. But even I think from the Rockets side of things, I don't think they would do that deal because even though he's on a down year, I still think Rocket fans and that organization still value Jalen Green very highly. And I don't think they would include him in a deal right now. I could be wrong with that. It could happen. And if he is on the table, I don't know if the New York Knicks will pull the trigger on it or not. I personally wouldn't do that because there are other moves on the table that are better suited for the Knicks to make right now and that could help them right now. I don't know if getting Jalen Green at this point in time, given his production and where the Knicks are at this point, if it makes sense for either side to do that. So honestly, I can see both parties skipping on this. Moving on to the next team on this list and the last team, the Utah Jazz. Now, this one has a lot of legs to it because Colin Sexton and really more specifically Jordan Clarkson has been linked to the New York Knicks in regards to names the Knicks could potentially trade for. But here's why that won't happen. The New York Knicks, specifically when you're talking about trading for Jordan Clarkson, have to deal with Danny Ainge. The report that came out from Ian Bagley mainly stated that they did not want to trade Jordan Clarkson for anything less than something significant. They wanted significant assets back. Now, I can't define or determine what significant assets mean, but I'm going to go ahead and guess that Quentin Grimes, Evan Fournier, and a protected first-round pick do not and will not equal a New York Knicks getting Jordan Clarkson. It doesn't make sense because significant assets, at least from my perspective for a Jordan Clarkson, sounds like multiple first-round picks plus Quentin Grimes plus Evan Fournier and maybe something else. I don't know, maybe a Jericho Sims perhaps, or something else in returns. Whatever sweetener that Danny Ainge can get, he's likely going to want to ask for and get before he does any deal with the Knicks. So because of that, because of the history, and because of the value and the amount that I think Danny Ainge would ask for, I think that's enough to get Leon Rose running and going to another team. And in my opinion, the only team that's left, if you're looking legitimately at the West Coast and teams that have interest in Quentin Grimes, have interest in trading with the New York Knicks, Portland makes the most sense. And honestly, Quentin Grimes, would he not make sense for the young core they're building, whether he's off the bench or starting for them? Because honestly, I think he would. And I think that would make sense for the Portland Trail Blazers, who are still in a rebuilding mode. And if it doesn't work out, they can still potentially flip Grimes in the future for another asset that fits their roster better. I think it makes sense for everybody involved, for the Knicks and the Blazers to do a trade. I don't want it. I don't like it. I think Brogdon is injury prone, and I already told you, there are two guys on the Washington Wizards right now that I would rather the Knicks go after. However, if they're not going to do that, and they prefer to trade Grimes to a Western Conference team, the Blazers make all the sense in the world to me. And after this video, I think it makes sense to all you guys as well too. But honestly, let me know, guys, what do you think about these reports that the Knicks want to trade Grimes to a Western Conference team? And out of all the teams that I've just mentioned, the Portland Trail Blazers do make a lot of sense. Let me know in the comments below, guys, because honestly, I would love to hear your thoughts and hear from you. But at this point in time, this is going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, go ahead and smash that like button, leave a comment below, and of course, guys, please subscribe to the channel. Until next time, Knicks fans. Peace.